So backing up and restoring dotCMS, it's very closely related as well to the upgrading process. So we'll sort of talk about those in conjunction with one another. Manually backing up and restoring your database, your assets, your plugin folder. These are the components that you need to be aware of when you are doing a backup. The components you need to back up when you're backing up dotCMS is your database here, your network resources, your assets folder, your plugins folder within the dotCMS application tree, any dynamic plugins that you happen to have, and then you can also back up your indexes if you want to. So, and the idea is to do all this programmatically, have some sort of backup software that is running all this for you. You can use something like rsync. For the databases, we recommend using whatever tools the database vendor provides. And then using OS level tools in rsync is probably the most popular. If you're wanting to back up if you have any dynamic plugins, you will want to back them up. That's going to be under, I don't think I have any instances that have any dynamic plugins. But if you had dynamic plugins, they would be under your .server, Tomcat, Felix load folder. And this is a configurable object, actually. In the latest version of dotCMS, you can go into your .marketing config and you can put your plugins somewhere else if you want, your dynamic plugins. So just like we talk about taking the .secure folder and the assets folder out of the dotCMS tree, you can also take your plugins out of the dotCMS tree. And this, again, makes it much more modular. You have a package of configuration that you can apply to any dotCMS download and be up and running pretty quickly. If you're going to be backing up your Elasticsearch indexes separately, then you want to do that from that's going to be your .secure folder. So if your .secure folder is still within your dotCMS application tree, then that's going to be under that .secure folder. In my case, .secure is under .secure. There's also a license.dat file and a server ID.dat file that are located in your .secure folder generally. Those are going to be, if you're restoring to a different server, you're going to have to change those. If you're restoring to the same server, like you had a hardware failure, you had to replace a hard disk or something, if you're restoring them to the same server, then you can use the same license ID and server ID file. If you have to change servers, change hardware, then that server ID will need to change, so you actually need to generate a new license. In terms of backup frequency and granularity, that's really determined by your enterprise standards. When we are setting up environments, we will do nightly, weekly, and monthly backups, and we'll retain them for whatever the agreed upon contract calls for. So again, it's going to be determined more by your enterprise standards than by any sort of guidelines that we're going to provide for how often you back things up and how long you retain those backups. And restoring from a backup, and this is where we get into it being largely the same as doing upgrades. The steps are the same, whether you're going to be restoring from a backup or upgrading to a new environment. What you'll do is you will restore your database as per the vendor guidelines. So as you can see here, I've got a couple different installs of dotCMS going here. If I'm wanting to restore an instance, say I'm going to do instance, So you download the .cms tar file to your new location. You've created a backup of your database. You've already restored that database backup as necessary. You've put your assets where they need to be. I'm going to say that the 4.2 folder is my backup location. So I'm going to copy from 4.2 plugins to my plugins folder here. If I had those dynamic plugins, I would copy those into that Felix folder. The indexes I would restore the same way. So I'm taking this from my backup environment, but they're not in that folder. So I copy from my backup into my location here. Oops. I've got a path issue there. Oh, I didn't dash R. But it's effectively the same thing. So copy over your Elasticsearch. If you're restoring to the same server, you restore your license files. If you're restoring to a different server, you would actually go through and relicense like we did yesterday in the admin console, where I went ahead and uploaded that license there. And then once you have your site up and running, again, you'd simply go in and you can run a reindex. What I would generally do is I go in and I just check the site to make sure things are working properly and displaying properly. It used to be the standard advice that we would say reindex when you do an upgrade or restore, but it's no longer strictly necessary unless you're seeing problems with the site.